All right, good evening, everyone. We want to go ahead and get started. We want to respect your time and our time. We have allotted an hour to have this discussion tonight, and we know timeliness is next to godliness. And so we're 6 minutes behind. So let's go. So I want to welcome you guys for coming out again. It has always been my practice and the city of Fort Worth practice to be transparent, let people know what we're doing here in the city of Fort Worth. And so the last time we was here, we had a discussion about the National Juneteenth Museum and Southside Community Center. And so we made a promise that we will come back to the community after we go through a lot of discussions within the city of Fort Worth, within the departments and community, Southside Community Center, with my office and with city management. And so we have been working with each other, trying to make sure what we heard you say in the last meeting. And we'll come back with the survey in just a moment. But as I open up, I want to talk about how we understand that we know the condition of Southside Community Center needs repairs, needs upkeeping, needs to be taken care of even better. And we understand that the National Juneteenth Museum would like to inquire that location to build a National Juneteenth Museum. And we are in favor of all those things within the community and the city of Fort Worth. But it was imperative to me and the city of Fort Worth is that we make sure we have a house for the Southside Community Center. And so we talked about some wanted us to build a new community center. And we explained briefly on how that works. Those are built in our bond packages. And our bonds are every 4 years. Bond is going to come in 2026. And each community center scores a certain type of score if they will be able to reach the top score to be placed on the ballot for the bond package. But even when they're placed on the ballot, then the community has to go out and vote for it to make sure it happens. And so there's a lot of technicalities that happens when you want to put some on the bond. It's not a guarantee. And so we began to figure out how we move around services. One of the biggest things for me is I didn't want to split up the service from Southside Community Center. If you go to Southside Community Center for AARP, for VIP, if you go there for after-school program, if you go there to vote, all those services that is housed in the Southside Community Center needs to be in the same location. And so what we have done is we have worked with Harvey Peace Center, newly built a center within, I forgot, was it 2006? 2009. And so we have developed a plan where we can move all the services, I like to call it picking up Southside Community Center and housing it in the Harvey Peace on the bottom level. And what that does is it allows every resources that is happening to Southside Community Center be housed there. If all the things plan out the way it's going, in the next year, 2, 3 years, we will also put a resolution. I'll bring forth a resolution to rename the Harvey Peace to the Southside Community Center at Harvey Peace Center. So it allows, and number one, it makes sure that Southside Community Center does not lose its home. It does not lose its history. It does not lose its identity. It just moves into a better location, as well as we keep neighborhood services, code compliance within the community housed in the same location. That's what we call a compromise, or trying to bring everything together here in the city of Fort Worth. And so those are some of the things. Nothing is set in stone. This is us coming back to you again to tell you we heard what you said. We're trying to make amendments, accommodations to the community and make sure that we don't lose as a community. And so we're going to talk through those things tonight. But that's the gist of what we're looking at tonight. And so you guys took a survey on that night, and we have the results of that survey. And so I'm going to have Michelle Goop to come and give us the survey results, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, we had 115 people complete the survey, and I'm going to show you the results from the 2 questions that we asked. Oh, this was our agenda. That's okay. The first question we asked was, do you currently use the Southside Community Center? 51% of the people said yes, and almost 49% said no. So it's about split down the middle. We did also ask for zip codes, and 61.9% of the people who completed the survey said that they live in 76104. The second question we asked was, do you support having the Juneteenth Museum in the current location of the Southside Community Center? As you can see, 66.9% were in favor of us doing that. So these are the results from the survey that you all took. Thank you to everybody that completed it. And we took the comments and the results of those and factored that into the staff conversations. And now Dave Lewis and Monique Hill are going to give an update from the Parks Department. Monique's first. Taft. One more.
Okay. Good evening. How are you all doing? Good. I'm Monique Hill. I am the Assistant Director with the Park and Recreation Department, and I'm over the Recreation Division. And so we're going to talk to you, myself and Dave will introduce himself when he gets here, a little bit about the community center. And Councilmember Nettles talks about kind of how we got here, where we are, and that we heard you. And so what we want to talk to you about is what's currently happening at the community center and how we foresee those things transitioning and moving over, but keeping services intact. So I know this looks a little bit faded on here, but what you'll notice here is if you're familiar with Southside Community Center, some of you may have remembered, as I call them, the good old days. That's when we had the one-stop shop model. It used to be that there was a daycare in the facility, there was a health clinic from UT Health and Science. Likewise, we had Fort Worth ISD. We also had services from the county, WIC, and food stamps that used to be in the facility. Let me see if I don't know if this laser is working or if it's the user. It's probably the user. I don't think it's working. At any rate, you'll notice in some of the spaces, there's no highlighted areas. The highlighted areas that you see here are the use of the center that we presently use. The other parts of the community center are areas that's kind of unusable because of those former agencies and services that used to be in our community center. But staff have done a great job repurposing the center so that we can provide services. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that the areas that are highlighted are what we use currently. So right now, for our usage, one of the things that's a little alarming to me is in hearing some of our survey results and the number of people that we show presently that are using the center or not using the center. But what I will tell you is that the people that come to the center, it is a beloved center to the folks that utilize it. One of our, and I'm a little biased, our Best Years Club is our program for older adults. And so we currently have that service where we have roughly between 45 and 50 users. However, if we have a special event, you can see that usage go anywhere from 65 to 100 older adults utilizing it, depending on what's happening. So, something's out back there. Also, our Best Years Club has been fortunate to have a little workout area. And so they now have that area where they can walk on a treadmill, lift weights, and do other things like that. Also, and this is so that you understand the space that is needed in the space we are using. Also, we have Meals on Wheels that provides transportation as well as our meal service for our older adults. And so we utilize the kitchen for that. And then in our after-school program, we average about 20 youth for that program. And then summer day camp, it jumps up to nearly 50 youth. And then again, I mentioned that we have our summer day camp, our special events, where we have about 50 to 100 people. And generally, we're using the parking lot, the whole center. We have a good time when we have everyone at the facility. Now, our programs that I just mentioned are managed by our staff. So those first ones that I mentioned to you were by staff. These are some of our partner programs. These are things where we have folks that come in and they have contracts with us and we provide services to the community. So VITA is the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. Last year, we were able to have just under 8,000, about 7,500 tax returns. That's not including people that actually came for questions. So we know that that's a service that's highly utilized. Then we also have the Violence Intervention Program, that's VIP. VIP has been housed with us for over, 3 years. That's funded by CCPD as a service, as an intervention service. We also have our Kids Environmental Education Network that comes and they use the community center. That's kind of on a quarterly basis. Most of their work is out in the community, but certainly we want to recognize them. And then AARP, we have 40 to 60 people. They're using our center pretty regularly. They are one of the largest chapters here in Fort Worth. And then, of course, the Neighborhood Association, which many of you are a part of. And then voting, you'll see the numbers that we have here. About 7,000 people coming again for our voting. And I'm sorry, on VITA, I think I said 7,000, I meant 700 tax returns. And then we also use our community center to provide meals to our older adults, which is our Senior Share program. So when thinking about what we need to do, those are the primary services that we need to make sure that we keep intact so that we can continue providing those much needed services to our community. With that, we have office space that we need for our staff. We need to make sure that we have kitchens available, and then also some storage, because if we have programs, we got to have places to put all the items that we utilize, as well as things for our custodial items. So in that, I'm going to allow Dave Lewis, our Deputy Director, to talk to you about some of the things that we are considering.
Good evening, y'all. Good to see you again. My name is Dave Lewis. I'm the Deputy Director of the Park and Recreation Department. I'm going to walk through some of the spaces that we've identified. As we've said, we capitalized on the information that we got last October when we were here, some information we got from Councilmember Nettles' office that he's been collecting over the course of the last couple months to really put together this program that we think meets a lot of needs. Some of our goals were, again, like move the entire center to Hazel Harvey so we could keep the synergy of all those programs together. Also to make sure that any of the programs that are currently going on at Southside have as much dedicated space as they can for their program. So you don't have seniors that are trying to share space with kids at summer camp, and really trying to make it as dedicated as possible so they can really make those spaces feel like home. If you're not aware, Hazel Harvey Peace has 2 floors to it, and we thought the best opportunity would be to keep all the programs in the center on the first floor to make it more accessible, but also not split it up so you had some on the first floor and some on the second floor. So real quickly, some of the programs that are happening right now at Hazel Harvey Peace and the occupants of this space, as you can see, the Code Compliance Department has 2 sections, one for their admin and one for their compliance officers. You have the large meeting room right in the middle that's currently being used for a lot of community programs, as well as the Environmental Consumer Health Division, and then PD has a small storefront there as well. Currently, it is, the bottom floor is about 17,800 square feet, and right now the Southside Community Center is just a little over 19,000 square feet, many of which, is not used as efficiently as it could. So we were able to find space to go ahead and move the programs over and move the community center. So again, a little bit hard to see, but what I wanted to identify is really what we put together as a proposal to move the community center to this new space, starting with Zone 1 right in the middle. It's about 1,200 square feet, and that would be almost exclusively used for the Best Years Club. The only other uses really would be some of the community programs, like the Neighborhood Association could meet there at nighttime whenever the Best Years Club isn't using the space, but they'll really be able to set it up in a fashion that best suits that club to be used. Zone 2 and Zone 1 together kind of create what we've considered more of the recreational program zone of the building, and then Zone 3 is more of the community resource area where we've got some staff members. That's where VITA and VIP would be located. But going back to zone 2, it probably won't be configured exactly how you see it right now, but really roughly on the square foot basis, we'd have about 2,000 square feet that would be multi-purpose space that could house some of those larger events that Monique talked about, such as some of the best year's dances. Pretty easy to accommodate some of those larger audiences that happen at Southside right now. And then the left side of it would be used for the youth programs, both after school and then summer camps and then other out of school time activities for youth, as well as having that fitness zone that's important and gets used right now by the Best Years Club. It would have some of the fitness equipment, but also be able to house some of those fitness programs for the Best Years Club. As I mentioned, Zone 3 would be more of the community service type area where we would have the City of Fort Worth office staff you could see up at the top. And Monique mentioned that we probably need 4 offices for City of Fort Worth staff that do the programming. And then you would have some space that VITA would be dedicated so that whenever they have clients that come in to get tax assistance, they would have that space available. And then VIP would have some space for not only their individual staff members, but also some meeting space. They do meetings there and get together and talk about their mission and occasionally bring in people in the neighborhood as well. And then in the middle really would kind of be the public waiting area where we could have reception, and then people who are coming in to either wait to get their tax assistance or waiting to see VIP or staff members would kind of be transformed into a waiting area. She did mention that we had the storage needs. There's a couple different zones. You can see storage in Zone 3, but even the blue triangle behind Zone 1 is also storage, so there should be plenty of storage to take on the needs that we have for the program supplies for both the youth and the senior programs. And then it does have some break room area space right now that we would be able to use to have the Meals on Wheels programs there. And on the previous slide, it said hold on that. What that means is we really just use it for hot holding of the meals. We're not actually creating the meals there, and so we'd be able to do that there as well. So the bottom area that's not listed as a zone, that would remain to be the code area as well as the police storefront. And the code area that used to be in Zone 3 would be relocated most likely upstairs. And there's still some shuffling to do to make sure that we accommodate the staff that is there now that we prefer that stays there, and some would actually be moving to New City Hall. So a little bit of juggling to make sure that some of the offices that are there continue to have good space. What I was just talking about, but more in a written manner, again, the community room would be Best Years, and then some of those evening meetings that whenever the Best Years Club is done for the day, they could be able to use that space. Zone 2, currently where the environmental group is, would be the youth for after school and camps, as well as multi-purpose room that could be used for the voting and then also split up for fitness. And then Zone 3 would be, again, where I talked about more of the resource area. Zone 3 fit pretty well for these purposes because it's probably going to be the space that needs the least amount of renovation. And so that fits pretty well with the current floor plan. But we know that Zone 2 is probably going to have to be redesigned to be really good community space, especially for the multi-purpose and for the youth. So we would go through that exercise to really look at how we could reconfigure that to accommodate those programs. Similarly, we could do the senior share that's happening right now at Southside, but probably in the lobby or some other good space where those could come in. And then, as I mentioned, Meals on Wheels could use the kitchen storage space and then actually serve in the Zone 1 community room that's built for the Best Years Club. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions for myself, for Monique, or anybody else. Yes, ma'am. There's a small break room that is kind of there, so we could do some there, but also if we had to use the kitchen just for holding, there's one upstairs as well, and we could just bring the meals down. Yes, ma'am.
Good. Well, they go down to Southside Center, and it was Fellowship Corner at Southside Center. And everything you're talking about is what they said we were going to do down at Southside Center, but that never transpired. So my question is, this sounds good, but what guarantee do we have that this is going to happen?
Right now, this is the plan, and it's going to actually be the long-term home for all these programs, so we don't expect them to ever have to move again. And one of the benefits, as was mentioned earlier, this building was built in 2009, so it's going to have a long lifespan. They've actually done some foundational studies and taken care of that, so it's been shored up. So really, it's probably a 50-year building that those programs will be able to be housed there for long term.
Dave, I'll just chime in on that question. I'm William Johnson, Assistant City Manager here at the City of Fort Worth. And one of the things that's going to be happening on February 11th is that we're going to be bringing forward a resolution for council's consideration that's going to talk about our plan to relocate the Southside Community Center to the Hazel Harvey Peace Center, that bottom floor. It's also going to talk about the council's continuing support of the Juneteenth Museum, in addition to allowing the city manager to move forward with executing a lease with the Juneteenth Museum to allow them to proceed with their fundraising efforts, etc. The one caveat is that none of these moves that we're talking about are going to be happening until they're ready to start moving forward with construction. So you won't have the center sitting there empty. All the programming is going to stay there. Everything will stay as it is until they're ready to move forward with construction. That makes sense? Okay.
What?
Yes. And it, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Misremembering that the Hazel Harvey Peace Building was constructed such that an additional level could be added. Is that from something else I'm thinking about? No?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes.
The second floor that freed up.
All right.
What happened on, Lord, what happened on the second floor that freed up all this space to make room
In the city hall.
for this?
We started looking at other city facilities where we could relocate some of those occupants of the second floor to free up that space. So right now it's all city staff and activities on the second floor. All of that's going to be moved out to a number of different locations to free up the space for this activity.
And when is that going to happen?
It's not going to happen until after, yes.
There. He was actually down.
Pardon me?
This city.
We don't think that it's going to require a huge budget lift. We have in our budget, we'll probably be using PAYGO capital and some other things to move forward with this when we do have to move. So, yeah, we think it's not going to be a huge budget lift to make the modifications that we need to make.
Still, what is the name of it? Was Athens Southside Center.
Okay. One of the valuable things at the Southside Center is that kitchen, and it does need a little bit larger kitchen for fun, especially when the seniors have programs and when we start having more youth programs there. You're gonna need a larger kitchen, and I think originally the kitchen, and if you go back and look at the original footprint for Hazel Harvey Peace Center, there was a kitchen that was originally put in there for demonstration programs, and so I have never seen it, and so I guess that's one of the things we need to look at as you move forward.
Yeah, as we move forward, we would continue to identify the community needs, and if there's a need to have cooking classes and other things, that we would potentially look at that as a renovation then potentially either use the upstairs space, or if there's another way to reconfigure this, that would be part of the ongoing program. But as he mentioned, there would be no plans to move anything until the time has come that we need to move it. And then, of course, we would time that out ahead of time so that we can look at the spaces and design it based on the community need for the center.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I have already mentioned that piece of making sure that if we need that kitchen, how we reconfigure this location. And I will tell you, we wanted to make sure we come back to you with a plan. And so what you see is a plan that we have been working on for the last 3 months, trying to make sure we hear your needs, meet your needs, and as well give Juneteenth Museum an opportunity to continue to fund and have a location that they can call home. And so this is the very preliminary action today. And so things that we see that may need to happen within the next 2 years, we can add that. But the resolution, as William talked about, it will be set in place for the city to do X, Y, and Z when X, Y, A, B, and C happens. And so, any other questions? Do you need to say anything else about the resolution? Because you was next on that. No, you good on that? Okay. Yes, Wallace. Well, let me also say this, compliment yourself and the community because it was a lot of conversation that took place, and we heard what the community said. And one of the things that we went back, and even some of the city staff said, we want to make sure that every piece goes. And so that's why we articulate, we picking up the Southside Community Center as a whole and relocating it, and not just different services. So again, you are the voice of your community. When you come out, when you speak, this council is listening, this city staff is listening. So this is what you see today, a result of what we heard you say.
My question is, do we have a committee that consists of Southside Center people and people from Southside itself when you start doing the renovation or whatever you're doing with before you move over to the Hazel Hart piece?
Do we have a committee?
The least we did to kind of have their input. And because if we're from the center and we're there, we know what we need. So, kind of.
And I think that's something that we can implement. We have historically and currently have been working with the Southside Neighborhood Association. But if the community feels that we need a subcommittee so that we make sure from step A to Z, the committee knows and can report back to the Neighborhood Association, I think that that's something that's very doable that we can do. And I'll also, again, say if you're not a part of the Historic Southside Neighborhood Association, become a member so that you can know what's going on as well. Miss Jared, she's bringing it.
I'd just like to say last week we took a tour. Last week we took a tour of the building, and what they're showing up here now is what we saw. We walked through and we were told, like, hey, just like what they're saying, and I know we've been promised so many different things, but what I heard last week is the same thing that I'm hearing today. So we have been engaged, Historic Southside Neighborhood Association has been engaged in this, and thank you, Councilman Nettles, for allowing us to be a part of whatever renovation. And like he said, if you need to know those of you that don't know what's going on, if you become a part of the Historic Southside Neighborhood Association, You'll know.
Yeah. And I'll say this, we won't prolong the time, but if we have any more questions, we'll keep answering those questions. But I will say, as we talked about on the 11th, the reason why we brought this meeting back so quickly is because on the 11th, there will be a resolution that the council will vote on. And so if you have at City Hall at 6 p.m., 200 Texas Street. Okay. Well, we moved, so I'm just making sure. Okay. And so those of you that are here, you can come down to City Council that night and sign up to speak on this resolution as well, so that the entire council can hear, some of your concerns that you may have or don't have, or your appreciation to encourage them to vote for this resolution so that we get 2 in 1. Any other questions? All right. Well, we have our newly city manager that's in the house, Mr. Jay Chopper. We appreciate him being here this evening. And so I want to thank all of you for coming out, city staff, our assistant city managers, our assistant chief of police for being here. I will stick around for any additional questions that you may have for me. But until then, thank you guys for coming out, and we really appreciate you. All right.
You excuse me.